It was raining again in Seattle, the kind of rain that softly tapped against Emily's window and made her tiny apartment feel smaller, warmer, and lonelier. She was finishing a late design project when the sound of loud knocking startled her. At first, she thought it was thunder. But then, another knock, firm, urgent. Emily hesitated. It was nearly 10 p.m. She wasn't expecting anyone. When she finally opened the door, there stood a man, soaked from head to toe, holding a small first aid kit and looking like he'd just come from a storm. "Sorry for bothering you," he said, catching his breath. "I'm Daniel, your neighbor from 3B. There was a small kitchen fire in the hallway. Everything's fine now, but you might want to keep your window open for a while. The smoke alarm might go off again." Emily blinked, trying to process his words. His voice was calm but firm, and his uniform still smelled faintly of smoke. "Oh, thank you. I didn't even hear it," she said, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. Daniel smiled slightly. "You must be a heavy sleeper or just really focused." She laughed softly. "Focused, I guess. I'm a designer. Deadlines don't care about fires." That made him chuckle. "Well, glad you're okay. Sorry again for the noise." Before he turned to leave, she noticed his hand, a small cut, bleeding lightly. "Wait," she said quickly. "You're hurt. Let me help." He shook his head. "It's nothing." But Emily was already walking toward her kitchen. "Sit," she said, pointing to a chair. "I've got a better first aid kit than that old box you're carrying." Daniel hesitated, then gave a small smile. "All right, if you insist." As she cleaned his cut, he watched her quietly, her gentle hands, her focus, the way she frowned when she dabbed the antiseptic. "Do you always take care of strangers like this?" he asked softly. "Only the ones who save my building," she replied with a shy grin. For the first time in months, Emily felt something shift inside her, a warmth that had nothing to do with the heater running in the corner. Over the next few weeks, Daniel and Emily began running into each other often, in the elevator, the mailroom, the cafe across the street. Sometimes he'd bring her coffee before his shift. Sometimes she'd leave homemade muffins at his door. They didn't talk much about their pasts. But they didn't have to. Their silence felt natural, like two people who had both lived through storms and were finally learning to breathe again. One evening, as autumn painted the city orange and gold, Daniel knocked on her door again, but this time, there was no emergency. He was holding a small plant. "You said your windowsill looked empty," he said with a smile. Emily laughed. "You remembered." "I remember everything you say," he replied, softly but honestly. She looked at him for a long moment. "Come in," she whispered. They spent the evening talking, about childhood dreams, about the city, about how both of them had lost someone they loved once. Daniel had lost a fellow firefighter in an accident. Emily had lost trust after a long, painful breakup. Yet in each other, they found something new, peace, maybe even hope. Weeks turned into months. Their friendship deepened, quietly and beautifully. Daniel started helping her with groceries. She started waiting for him to return from work, just to see that familiar, tired smile. One snowy night, when a power outage left the entire building in darkness, Daniel came over with candles. They sat together on the couch, wrapped in blankets, watching the snow fall outside. Emily whispered, "I used to hate the dark. It made me feel alone." He looked at her gently. "You're not alone anymore." Something in the way he said it made her heart skip. The next morning, she found a note on her table. "Greater than, going on a 2-week rescue training outside the city. Didn't want to wake you. Take care of my plant, D." She smiled, touched the little plant on the sill, and whispered, "Come back safe." When Daniel returned, the plant had grown taller, and so had the quiet love between them. That evening, as the city lights shimmered over the wet streets, Daniel stood at her door again, not in uniform this time, but in a simple sweater, holding 2 cups of coffee. "I've been meaning to ask you something," he said. Emily tilted her head. "What's that?" He took a deep breath. "Do you want to grab dinner tomorrow? Not as neighbors, but as something more." Her smile said everything before her words did. "Yes, Daniel. I'd like that." Dash dash dash. From that night on, everything changed. They didn't need grand gestures or dramatic confessions, just quiet mornings with coffee, shared laughter in the rain, and the comfort of knowing they finally had someone who understood. In a city known for storms, Emily and Daniel had found their calm, in each other. Dash dash dash. Ending line. Greater than. Sometimes, Emily would later say, the best things happen when you open the door, without thinking.